What's going on, everybody? I'm Jerry, and today I got my Week 11 power rankings, first video of Week 11, and we're just going to go through all 32 teams as we do every week. I just made a video late last week on the Chicago Bears and what they should do with their quarterback situation, and I finally set a like goal on the video. The like goal is 10 likes, and I'll do another Bears video. I have it in the works. Just going to say, might be about the offensive line. Been a big problem in Chicago. There was some comments that people liked my takes on it. So get that video to 10 likes so I can release another Bears video. And like this video too. Won't put a goal on it. I want you to like it because you like it. But Bears video, want more likes on it. Let's get to 10 likes. I would assume there's going to be 4 people that watch this. And if there's 4 people that haven't liked that video, you need to do that. So let's do that. But first, let's move on to the power rankings. Got a new loser in the New York Giants. I had to move the Giants back here. Panthers didn't really do anything to deserve moving up. It was just the Giants really stink, really bad. We know the quarterback situation isn't going to get better. Saquon's in and is healthy, and not enough at all. Wink Martindale's defense is not enough either. Big problems there. Just very warranted of moving back to the 32 spot. Biggest mess in the league. Oh, you know what? Before I move on to the Carolina Panthers that I already mentioned were here, my friend Jason, who has some of the worst takes in history and usually gets takes wrong, just gave me a suggestion about the video to add point differential. So that's why you see the point differential. Didn't know where I wanted to put it, so I just plopped it right in the middle there. And the Giants, when I do the rankings, I do the rankings first. I move all the teams around where I think they should be. Then I add in the stats afterwards, so that doesn't affect my opinions. But it is interesting to look and see where the teams are, and it makes sense moving the Giants back last in points per game, yards per game, and then close to last, on defense there too, and then last by like 60 points. As far as point differential, they've just been getting smacked. They played good teams, sure, but they haven't even looked close. They've had the 2 wins that actually were pretty good, but not enough for me. So Giants are at 32. We've already seen that the Panthers are at 31. 1-8, only 1 win. Why are they ahead? Honestly, just because they've been closer in games and have at least looked like a competent football team. Their defense, the points per game stat is kind of inflated because of like a couple. There was a pick and then a pick 6 and a pick almost 6. In one of their last games, and Bryce Young's turned the ball over a lot of times, honestly, and been in a lot of positions where they don't get downfield, and then the other team gets good field position, resulting in the Panthers' defense really not allowing a lot of yards, but allowing a whole lot of points. But I do think the Panthers have at least been more competent of a team and been closer in games than the Giants, and that's why they move up a spot for me. Next, we have the New England Patriots, who make a lot of sense here. We got Grumpy Bill again. Thought about doing Shirtless Bill on the back porch, but on the back staircase. But this seems a little better. We just seem to switch between Happy Bill and Grumpy Bill, depending on a win or a loss. A lot of Grumpy Bill this year. Offense can't put anything together. The defense is just not great. I mean, in this game, they do, most recent game, only hold the Colts to 10 points, which no teams held them under 20 this year. So good for them there. But they still move back and you have to be able to produce some offense. Their running game did look good. They just couldn't find the end zone. So they got to figure that out, and they're not going to be able to move up moving forward. If they don't, these 3 teams kind of looked like the biggest mess to me, honestly, as of recent. I think the Jets would be in there too. Their defense is just too good to have them this low. And like I said, the Panthers, I don't think are a complete mess. They just can't win games. So they stay back here. And then next up at 29, we have the Cardinals, who finally put it together. They have little Kyler Murray back there, little guy. And they're 2-8 now. They get another win. And I don't know. I think... 25th in points per game in yards per game. They're not great as far as their talents. But Kyler Murray comes back, James Conner comes back, and you can see that they're at least a competent football team, which is better than those last 3 teams we talked about. Cardinals moving their way up to 3 spots to 29th. We got 28. The Chicago Bears. minus 51 point differential, which is actually pretty decent here so far. Haven't really gotten blown out in many games. I mean, the recent Chargers game was not great. It was like, what was that, 30-12? And then, you have the Chiefs game. They got blown out. But otherwise, they've been pretty close in games this year. We throw Cole Kmet down there just because Bajan is officially out. And I don't want to put Fields up there yet. I think Cole Kmet's had a great year. He's been a top 10 tight end at the very least. Could make an argument for top 5. Might be a little too positive for him. He's probably like 7 or 8. But he's definitely up there. Could make an argument for it. So Cole Kmet gets his face on the screen for this week. Offense, not horrible. Obviously, Bajan didn't look great with Bajan. Finally missing throws, but I still liked how the offense worked. You can hear about that in my Bears video if you go check that out. But I think they did all right. I think they did okay, did what they needed to do for the 2 games that they won. The defense, though, has been what's playing a lot better. And it's mainly been the turnovers, that their yards per game is similar to the Panthers, where their yards per game is pretty low, but their points per game is pretty high. Bajan with 6 turnovers in the 4 weeks that he was in. So not good there. That obviously didn't help. Bears are also last in penalties. So, you're last in, or I think they're like second or third to last in penalties. And then they're last in turnovers, turnover differential. So not looking good for the Bears. They move up a spot to 28th. Just getting a win, you move up a spot, really is all that was. Tennessee Titans just keep moving back. They get the 1 week where Will Levis comes in and they play well. But other than that, like Derrick Henry just did absolutely nothing this week. The defense wasn't as good as they usually are, allowing the Buccaneers to score 20, and then their offense only being able to score 6. You're not going to win a game if you only score 6 points. Titans move back 2 more spots to 27. I don't know. Is Vrabel on the hot seat? I don't know. It seems like that could be. Green Bay Packers. This one was interesting because you sit back and you look and you go, well, you look at the screen. Of course, you're looking at the screen. If you're watching the video, you'd be looking at the screen. I'm a fucking idiot. Anywho, aside from that, ranked them 26th, 21st in points per game and yards per game on offense, 11th in points per game and yards per game on defense. That sounds pretty good, Jerry. Why are they saying, look, -3? A point difference? Is that even real? Is that a typo? Yeah, no, that's real. So basically, they blew out the Bears, and I think they had another pretty big win. And then all of their losses have been like 1 score, 3 points, very, very close games. And every game has been, their defense just kind of stinks at the beginning. And so does their offense. And the other team goes up like 2 or 3 scores. And then the offense is like, oh, shit. We can still win this game. We got to play. And then it's a coin flip if they win or not. And that's basically what the whole year has been, is their whole team plays better in the second half, but it hasn't been enough to win the games. Kind of been a mess. Jordan Love clearly is not going to be on this Hall of Fame pace that Favre and Rodgers were. Sucks for the Green Bay Packers. They move back 3 spots for me. A lot of bigger movers this week, just because I felt like there was a couple errors where, I do just move them however I feel. But I try to look at all the games and factor in, who the teams have beat and who they've lost to. And Packers slot in at 26th. Seems fair to me. Next, 25, we have the New York Jets, who I think arguably could be even lower. But they're 4-5 still. They beat some good teams. You can't forget about that. Their defense is still one of the top ones in the league. Again, we just have the points per game and yards per game in there. But all of their defensive stats, they play very well defensively. They just can't score on offense. Seem to have gotten away from Breece Hall a little more than I would have liked. So I don't know what's going on there. Zach Wilson can't get the ball to Garrett Wilson or any of the receivers. They really need their quarterback back. I feel like, they're probably like 7-2 or maybe at the least 6-3 with Rodgers in there, just because of how well their defense has played and how horrible their offense has played. So I was still a little high on the Jets just because of their big wins that they've had. They are still only 4-5, but the recency bias is they've looked like a dumpster fire. So they move back 5 spots this week. Biggest negative mover this week. The Jets 5 spots to 25. And you look at the other teams around them, and it does kind of make sense. I feel like You could probably agree. Next one's the Raiders, who are the lowest 5-5 team I have on here. Kind of just getting wins when we didn't expect them to, and I don't think it's sustainable either because their offense still isn't playing great. Their defense is just Max Crosby is playing really good. Bob Spillane has been killing it too. Kind of the same way the Browns do, except the Browns have even more wins where the defense plays well, the offense plays good enough, and they get the win. But Raiders had to move up, and I think if they can consistently keep winning these games, they'll move way up for me because I think 24 is even possibly a little low for them right now. I think it's just I need to see it on a consistent basis. I can't see 2 Aiden O'Connell wins against average teams and then send them way up the charts. So Raiders going to 24 at 5-5, which is kind of a surprise to me. Commanders are at 23, still have them higher. I think you could make an argument Raiders be higher than the Commanders, but I just love how Sam Howell's been throwing the ball. He's been slinging it everywhere. The defense hasn't played well. They just got rid of their 2 edge rushers, their 2 star edge rushers, so that's to be expected. DBs aren't anything super special, and their whole defense really there's not a whole lot of special going on there. So that's kind of what's limiting them. I wonder if they're kicking themselves at all for trading the pass rush. I wonder if they think maybe they can fill that spot in the offseason, or they'd rather have the draft capital, or are they really going into a rebuild where they're like, okay, well, we have the quarterback, we have a couple receivers that I don't know how long they're going to last. Obviously, Jahan Dotson will be there a while, but Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, I don't know if they're going to want to go into a rebuild necessarily. But Sam Howell, Brian Robinson, and not Logan Thomas, I guess Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. That's all that's a pretty decent setup at least for a starter, especially having Sam Howell. He throws the ball well, so he's definitely ballsy with it, but he's been good. He's currently leading quarterbacks in passing yards. So can't complain there. Commanders move up 1 spot to 23 at 4-6. Next we have Atlanta Falcons, who really I was very tempted to move back farther. I still think a lot of it is there. They're really just missing the quarterback. And they kind of keep finding ways to lose games. And I think their team, I haven't moved them back. They moved them back 3 this week. I think they'd have an opportunity to jump back 4 or 5 spots next week. Not, this week because they're on a bye week, but the following week definitely could move back 3 or 4 spots just if they don't have another good game, because their defense has been pretty good this year. Their offense just turns the ball over and can't get points. And they're not, they finally used Bijan properly last week. Still not enough though. So they moved back 3 spots to 22 at 4-6. Denver Broncos moving way up. Biggest mover of the week is the Denver Broncos. Putting it all together. You beat the Chiefs. You have a bye week. You beat the Bills. There's not much else to say about that. They're still last. Those points per game and yards per game are correct. That is very inflated from the Dolphins game. So that's why they're probably going to stay back there most of the time. But as much as I hate to say it, Russell Wilson has been an efficient quarterback for them this year. He's not been old Russ, but much closer to it, definitely than last year. And then their defense is starting to play more like last year. I actually talked about it in my takeaways video a little bit on how last year the defense played well and the offense was the problem. And this year, starting off, their offense played pretty well, but their defense was the problem. And their defense is finally starting to turn the corner. Not to where I don't think they're going to be a threat in the playoffs, but when you go to 4-5 instead of 3-6 in their division, you could definitely make an argument for it that they could at least have an opportunity. It's tough because the AFC is so tough. But if they keep, they beat the Chiefs and they beat the Bills. So if they can beat teams that aren't as good as those teams, which are a lot of teams in the NFL with how good they are, they can string together some wins. They still only have 5 losses. If they lose 2 more the rest of the season, they're 10-7. They're probably in the playoffs. So that kind of stuff could happen. The minus 52 point differential is still inflated from that's literally just the Dolphins game. If you just factor, that's literally every other game they're even, aside from that. So Denver Broncos move up big time, 6 spots to 21 for me. I think they're deserving of it too with the 2 wins. Tampa Bay Buccaneers move up 2 spots. Was tempted not to do. When I typically like everything to happen week to week. So if a team has a really good game or beats a really good team, they move up more. But if it's only 1 week and it's a fluke thing, I don't like to move it up as much. In this case, they beat the Titans, who I don't think are a great team. But I think I was a little. I've been a Buccaneers hater so far, and having them at 20 at 4-5, I think this spot seems right. I think they deserve to be higher than these past couple teams that we've talked about. So it seems fair to me. They go to 20, moving up 2 spots. Right behind the Indianapolis Colts, who get a slight win over the Patriots. They've just kind of found ways to win games. Got to remember that they got Gardner Minshew playing instead of Anthony Richardson. I've always thought Gardner Minshew is a good quarterback, and he should be a starting quarterback on some team. I think if, obviously the Colts will go with Anthony Richardson next year. I think Gardner Minshew could be a possibility for the Falcons, or for pick a team that needs a quarterback. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is coming back to the Jets next year, but any team that you think needs a quarterback, I think, would be Gardner Minshew could be a starting quarterback for a team. So feel bad that he's kind of turned into this journeyman that's just made it around, but Colts still win the game. Not a great offensive performance, good defensive performance against Patriots offense that never really produces offense anyway. But Colts move up to 19, 2 spots from 21. Next up, we have number 18, the Rams. Okay, there she is. Los Angeles Rams, 3-6. I think Chargers. Not going with the Chargers yet. Want to talk about the Rams. Just noticed I have the 2 LA teams next to each other, so that's interesting. But Rams, tough to have them here at 3-6. I just think, they had the bye last week. And Stafford's back. They went down because of Ripien, and I think at 3-6, I think they're better than their record. You still have Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. The running backs that have filled in have at least been all right. They've kind of had like a whole carousel of running backs coming through in and out every week. Royce Freeman, Darrell Henderson, Kyron Williams, Cam Akers got traded to the Vikings midseason. So like they've had so many starting running backs. Don't really know what to do there, and their defense really hasn't been great either. But I think they're significantly better than their record, and it does make me feel like I'm crazy when I have the Raiders at 5-5 at 24, and then the Rams are at 18 at 3-6. But it's just they've played some tougher teams too, and I think that they still look like a good team. Dealt with some injuries. If they keep losing, they're going to significantly drop. But for right now, they're at 18, moving back just 1 spot. Chargers moved back 2 spots, losing to the Lions. Was tempted to only move them back 1 spot, but again, I felt like I had been wrong about a couple of my teams, so I kind of did some shuffling this week. Everything got moved around a little more than I would have liked. Ultimately, you lose to the Lions, and it seems like whatever team the Chargers play, they'll just barely lose or barely win. I don't think they'll ever, under Brandon Staley, be able to dominate a team and win by like 2 or 3 scores. This team, Chargers, who never really know what they are, they always seem to be just little below average, which 17 is pretty much perfect. But like barely beat the Bears, couple scores, and then barely lose to the Lions. I guess they didn't barely beat the Bears. They beat them by like, 2-3 scores. So that was but the Bears are one of the worst teams in the league. And then to be close with the Lions the whole game and then lose, it just seems like they find ways to lose games. They're 4-5. I don't see them making the playoffs, which is crazy because I just talked about thinking the Broncos may make the playoffs, but the defense, they can't figure it out for the Chargers. So they move back 2 spots, and I think they're probably going to hover around that 15 to 20 mark for the rest of the year. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they can put it together. I just don't think so. Next, we have the New Orleans Saints moving back 2 spots at 5-5, losing to the Vikings, who have been a massive surprise. Alvin Kamara he's kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? Because I don't think the Saints, sadly enough, I believe, they're still leading the division at 5-5, which is crazy. That they'll be a 1 through 4 seed, probably a 4 seed. But they're just not able to put it together. Derek Carr gets injured, and you have Jameis Winston come in, kind of a spark right at the beginning, and then everything kind of falls back into place for Jameis Winston, where he just starts turning the ball over and makes a big mess out of everything and ruins the game. I wanted to see more Taysom Hill in that game. He's a weapon, and I don't know why they don't use him as much. But Saints, good team, not able to figure it out. Again, you look at their defense, top 10 in yards per game, ninth in points per game, and their offense really isn't that bad either. They just can't find ways to win games that they should, in my opinion. Probably should have beat that Vikings team. But because they lose to that Vikings team, Vikings pass them up. I don't always do this where if a team beats another team, they move past them, especially in a case where like Broncos beat the Chiefs. You don't move the Broncos past the Chiefs, of course. But yeah, the Vikings, they had to move up 3 spots. I think they could even be higher on this list. I listened to Minnesota Vikings podcast, Purple Daily, great podcast. I listen to that every day. And they actually have, being Vikings fans, they have the Vikings, all of them had them between 9 and 10, which I thought was a little high. I can't put them there yet because, of course, you have the team putting it together without Justin Jefferson, and they're going to get him back this week. So the team technically should be even more dominant. I just don't think they've beat an amazing team yet, and I think that's kind of what's holding me back from moving them up. And the Josh Dobbs story, the Pastronaut, has been awesome. It's been so fun, but I want to see if it's sustainable. And unfortunately for the Vikings in my power rankings, I just need to see a little more before I can move them up into like that 12 plus range. So right now they end up moving up 3 spots still. So good mover for this week at 15 at 6-4, 5-game win streak, biggest streak in the league right now. Is the Houston Texans, who back-to-back game-winning drives by C.J. Stroud, been playing phenomenal. 2 big weeks, I think combined he had like 800 passing yards and 6 touchdowns and an interception. So great 2 weeks for him. The defense is still good, kind of slacked in these last couple weeks, but the offense has been doing enough to win. I just still think it's so impressive with not having an amazing offensive line, bunch of no-name receivers, making names for themselves this year, behind a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach, a rookie play caller. It's unbelievable. It's very impressive. I like the Houston Texans. I love seeing this. Love an underdog story. So I hope they keep killing it. It's a tough AFC. Would love to see them make the playoffs and see what Stroud can do in the playoffs. But good for them. They move up 2 spots to 14. Had to be ahead of the Vikings too for me, just beating some better teams. Bills have to keep moving back, keep finding ways to lose. You can't lose to the Broncos and not move back. I only have them moving back 2 spots because I couldn't move them past the Texans yet. Now I know they're 5-5. Texans are 5-4. That's just kind of a bye week thing. And Vikings, who are farther back, are 6-4. I don't feel confident the Vikings could beat the Bills, and I don't feel confident that the Texans could beat the Bills. So I keep them up there. I still want to think they're a good team. They fire Ken Dorsey, which obviously is kind of a big blow to the team. I've heard Sean McDermott is a tough coach to work for. So I don't know if that has any part of it, but it's really just been the Josh Allen turnovers and then the defense not playing as well as they have. I mean, they played okay, but they're not playing well enough. And the turnovers are really what's hurting it because you're giving the other team good field position and your offense is coming off the field, losing your ability to score points. So if Josh Allen can just tighten up, not throw interceptions, and I would even like to see him just take off and run with it. I know his coaches don't like seeing him take off and run with it, but he is a powerful runner, kind of like we remember Cam Newton. Josh Allen can run people over. He can hurdle over you. He can fake you out. I think we need to see more of that from him rather than throwing these tough balls for interceptions because he's just throwing too many picks this year. And the Bills keep moving him back to 13 for me. Hopefully they can move back up, but the Steelers pass them up. This one's the most fun to talk about because, points per game 26th, yards per game 28th on offense. Defense, you can read it. I don't have to read it to you. And then the point differential is minus 26. So they're just horrible statistically, but they're 6-3. Find ways to win games. They've been outgained in all 9 games in yards that they've played, and they're still 6-3. They just score more points than the other team. They haven't really played great teams. Now, they've beat teams like the Ravens and the Browns, which are another one that's okay, well, maybe they are good, but they're still barely beating them. In recent weeks, the benefit is Kenny Pickett hasn't really thrown any picks. He's played clean games. He hasn't played well. They're still throwing little dinks and dunks nowhere near the middle of the field. It's all horizontal to the side. But they're doing enough to win, and their defense has been so strong that really they just need to, because their run game's picked up too. Their run game and their defense has kind of been the reason they've been winning the games. And Kenny Pickett doesn't have to do much. He just has to not turn the ball over. And Steelers end up winning. So they move up one spot for me to the 12th spot. Seattle Seahawks move up only once. Really only move up because they win. Because I feel like they should have beat the Commanders by more than that. It was way too close of a game for me with the Commanders. Thought the Seahawks were good, especially in a game where Geno Smith doesn't turn the ball over. You know, Geno Smith played a really clean game. Kenneth Walker played well. The receivers did okay. It was just the defense couldn't stop Sam Howell, and they did enough, end up winning, but they only win by 3 in a nail biter where they very well could have lost the game. So only move up one spot for me. I couldn't move them behind the Steelers yet. Tempted to, but you look at both of these teams, and they're 6-3 with a -1 point differential. So it's like, you know, I don't know if they're even going to be sustainable. I think you could see, like, if the Vikings get a big win next week, why not move them up past these teams? You know, because the Seahawks and the Steelers are both kind of in the same boat where they found ways to win, but they really haven't consistently looked amazing. And you have to be able to do that, especially when you're making a playoff run. You're going to have to consistently find ways to win, but they're going to have to do more to make the top 10, that's for sure, as far as consistent winning, which completely contradicts what I just said with having the Bengals here. I just think, I don't know. For me, the Bengals, they still are a strong team. You look at them all around. The stats don't show it because of their rough start that they always have, but you still have Joe Burrow. You still have Jamar Chase. They lose, so they move back. Definitely think you could move them back more than this. But with how their defense has been playing better recently, I mean, they're still 16th in points per game. And their offense, again, those stats don't look good because of how bad they got beat in the beginning. But the stats don't tell it all. Again, I put the stats on the screen just as kind of a reference for you guys to look at. -10 in the point differential isn't great either. I just can't move them back yet because there is a lot of talent on this team. And I think if there's going to be a team that's going to get hot in the future, it could be the Bengals. And I still think the Bengals are a little bit more consistent as far as a football team, especially recently, than the Steelers and the Seahawks behind them, to where I had to keep them ahead of them right now. Another team that definitely could move back. I think it'll be easier for them to move back than move forward. Cleveland Browns, I don't even know what to say. They just keep winning games. You beat the Ravens and a nail biter, and it's like they've beat so many good teams that I'm tempted. I wanted to put the teams that the teams that this team has beat on the screen too. There's just too many. It would be too much. It would be a lot, and it'd be kind of cluttered. So I don't. But like the Browns have beat a lot of good teams. So you want to put them higher, but they're still the Browns. And now Deshaun Watson's out again. What are they going to be? Dorian Thompson-Robinson is officially the starter. So I have the Browns at 9. They just move up one spot because they get a win over the Ravens. Couldn't move them past the Jaguars yet. The Jaguars, it was tough too, especially after getting smoked. You'd want to move them up, getting smoked by the 49ers. 49ers are a great football team, and every team has an off week. They would have probably moved back past the Browns if this was a consistent thing. So far, they've been able to win games, and at only a +6 point differential is pretty sad. But that's kind of how they were last year. Last year, they had like one of the higher point differentials, like positive, but they had a losing record. And this year, their record's kind of showing more of what they are, but then they're getting losses. So +6 at 6-3 is really not great. Again, that's not the only thing you focus on. You look at the stats on the side and you go, how are they 8th? It's really just their record. They're 6-3, found ways to win games, and they have been a pretty complete team as far as defense playing well, run game's good. You got Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, a lot of talents over there. So Jaguars move back 2 spots to 8, right behind the Lions, who it's going to pop up any minute now. There she is. Lions chose to not move them at all, mainly because they barely won over the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers are a great football team. Defense played very poorly in this game. So it wasn't enough to credit them moving up. and with the teams around them, like they have the Jaguars get smoked. They definitely deserve to move back from 6 where they were last week. Lions barely beat the Chargers, so I don't think that's worthy of moving up. And then the Cowboys just murder the Giants, which, again, it's the Giants. But when you get a murder like that, and then you look at like second, fourth, and third as far as their team rankings, and then plus 104. I mean, you look at all that, and they're one of the best teams in the league. But I can't move them into the top 5 yet just because of how inconsistent they are, and they can lose to bad teams, but then they'll just also smoke bad teams. So it's like, I don't know, it's tough for me. Tough for me to move them up there. I don't think, I thought at the beginning, they're kind of a juggernaut, but they've kind of hung around that 6 to 8 region so far for me. And until they beat a really good team by a wide margin recently, I think they'll move up. Dolphins move back a spot really only because I felt obligated to move the 49ers up. So not much to say here. Plus 60 point differential. Still first on offense. 49ers, after beating the Jaguars, who had been a good, consistent football team, were very much so deserving of moving up to 4. So they had to move up, breaking that losing streak, that 3-game losing streak they had. You look at their stats, though, third, second, fifth, plus 109. Another great football team who had beat other good football teams, and probably one of the more complete, especially when you get Chase Young. Him and Bosa generating pressures. You still have Fred Warner. You still have Hufanga. You still have CMC, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Purdy. Like, there's just so much talent. Still a fun team to watch. And definitely a more fun team to watch this week, despite CMC losing his consecutive games with a touchdown. But they finally showed who they are again. They get Trent Williams back, get Debo back, and then it seems like they're all back, and they just get a massive win. Still a juggernaut in the league. Only moving up to 4, though, at this point. They're going to have to show more than the very consistent Ravens, who are up here, too. They had to move back for me in a loss. Jason, who I mentioned earlier in the video, was arguing that the Ravens should be number 1 beforehand. And I said, I don't know, they could lose to the Browns. And what do you know? They lose to the Browns. Eagles were on a bye, so there wasn't really any reason to move them around. And the Ravens get a loss. They still have one of the more well-rounded teams in the league. They lead the league in point differential with plus 113. That's really from badly beating, a couple teams. And they did badly beat good teams, too, so you have to keep that in mind. But in recency bias, you just lost to the Browns, who are towards the bottom of the top 10, and probably should have won this game. If they win this game, they probably move up to number 1. Because they don't, they move back to number 3. Next, we have, come on now, Kansas City Chiefs, who did I put 3 twice? Sure did. Hell yeah. Nice job, Jerry. Yeah, okay, well, number 3A, or number 2, is Kansas City Chiefs. They just, bye week. Do they have a bye week? Yeah, they had a bye week. They move up, though, for me with... They have a bye week? Yeah, they had a bye week. I'm losing my mind here. We got to get to the end of the video here. But Chiefs move up to number 2. They just seem, the Ravens had to move back to me. I think after the loss to the Browns, they had to move back. Chiefs get to move up. That's really all she wrote there. And then number 1, Philadelphia Eagles stay. It was a bye week. No team proved to me that they were better than the Eagles. The Eagles are still the only team with 1 loss. I think the Eagles definitely have an opportunity coming up with their 4 or 5 game stretch that's probably the toughest in the league to shoot down the list. Like, they could very easily in a week or 2 be at like 5 to 8. But because of how they've been, we have to look at how the season's been. Eagles stay at number 1, and I think that's where they belong. Again, if they can beat the Chiefs coming up here, definitely have an opportunity to move or to stay at the top, and then potentially move the Chiefs back. But so far so good for them. We'll do a quick look at everything side by side. We notice I did put 2 for the Chiefs in this particular graphic, but I like to sit back and look at all this side by side. Where would you switch? For me personally, I guess I could see where you might. I don't know, the Colts. The Rams, I feel like the Rams are a little too high. Feel like the Broncos are good. Vikings we talked about a little bit could be higher. Bengals could be lower. I think you could make an argument for Bengals all the way back to 12. But again, the inconsistencies with the Seahawks and the Steelers leave them back there for me. I think the Vikings, you could jump over the Texans, but in recency bias, I've just liked the Texans finding ways to win games. Both teams have good stories, but the Texans, really strong start to the season, couple tough games. Then, they lose to the Panthers, and then they've just been on a higher trajectory recently, where the Vikings have kind of been fighting from behind, starting 1-4. So that's why they're still back at 15 again. They have an opportunity to move up to the top 10, I think, in this next week or two. Giants belong at the last spot. I think Giants, Panthers, Patriots. I think Patriots, if the Panthers just get a win, I think Patriots could move behind them. Cardinals could fly up this list too, especially with getting Kyler Murray and James Conner back. So we'll see what happens. But don't forget to like the video, comment, subscribe, and then comment what you would do differently. Who do I have out of place? What should I change? I'm looking at it now. You can move the Cowboys up past the Dolphins probably with a big win. But let me know what you would change down below. And thank you for watching, and have a great day.